This is how to change the oil on a 2010 Camry. This method can apply to several other year models for the Camry as well. Because it can cost a lot of money to change the oil in a newer car, sometimes because they require synthetic oils, it can cost as much as $100 if you take it to a dealership. Even some oil change places will charge you $80 just to change your oil. I bought this filter and synthetic oil. This is a 0W20. It's somewhat hard to find, but not that bad. They don't sell it in the 5-quart containers readily available. Sometimes you can find it, but in this case I was able to buy the filter and the 5 quarts of 0W20 oil for about 45 bucks. There was a Bosch rebate that they were doing with mobile, but $45, that was with tax. That included tax. This is much better than $100. So if you want to save some money, this is a way to go. This Camry is a typical 4-cylinder Camry, and as I said, it's a 2010. One of the first things we need to do is jack up the car. We're going to jack it up from the passenger side, just behind the wheel, and then put up a jack stand just for safety. When you're changing your own oil, you're going to have to lay on the ground to get under the car a little bit. It's going to be a little bit messy, but if you're doing it to save money, it's just the price you got to pay. In this case, I'm using a sleeping bag to put on the ground that I could lay on. This is something that's cheap and reusable, and you can see I put the car jack underneath the car right by the wheel, and I'm putting it right on part of the frame that's going to be able to support it. And as you slowly jack the car up, it'll make contact. And we'll be back. As you can see, you don't have to jack the car up a whole lot. It's not off the ground a lot. We've jacked it up maybe, I don't know, 10 inches or so. I leave the hydraulic jack under there with some tension on it, and I also put a part of a jack stand under there to give some safety. The full jack stand won't fit, at least the one I have, unless I remove this one piece here. So that's enough to reach under the car and feel secure. Our goal is to get to the drain plug, which is right there. I'm not sure what size it is. I can't remember, so I'm going to have to get the I'm going to have to find out, and then I'll let you know. But there's the plug there, and we'll show you the filter in a bit. I also should point out that I warmed up the car for a couple of minutes. I didn't want it to get too hot, but you want the oil to be warm so it drains better. As you can see, I positioned the sleeping bag now towards the front of the car, in front of the jack, and turns out it's a 14 millimeter wrench socket. 9/16. Since this is metric, we're using the 14 millimeter. It fits a little snugger than the 9/16, which would work, but if you have a 14 millimeter, that's the best to go with. And as you can see under the car, we now have room. Laying down, we could easily reach the plug. I'm not even really under the car, just my arm is. And we have access to the fuel filter right here, which is even closer. I've already started unscrewing the plug here, so now I'm going to do it by hand. I've loosened it. You put your pan underneath and try and grip it from the side so you don't get oil all over your hand, and pull it out and let it go into the pan. You should let this drain for several minutes just to make sure it's all out, and then we'll also leave the plug off while we remove the oil filter and drain that. So there's the plug that came out, and it's always handy, as you can see, you get oil on your hand. It's always handy to have a towel here that you can wipe your hands off, because you will get messy, as I said. The other thing you should do is come up top and remove the cover here to let it drain better. As you can see, this says it recommends 0W20, which, like I said, is a more expensive oil. That's why I choose to change this oil myself. If it was a $20 oil change, I'd be taking it in somewhere, but it's not, so that's why I'm doing it myself. This oil filter is a little bit different than the standard canister type that you used to use in all the other cars in the old days, but this one has an actual outer shell you remove, and you replace the paper filter within it, and then you replace the shell. And I guess the idea behind that is less waste, more green for the environment, so there's less, as I said, less waste to throw away. The first thing of this is you take a socket, just the stem itself, and you remove. It'll fit right into the base of this, and that bottom silver part actually rotates out. And as you can see, I've already loosened it, but you don't have to push in very far. You got to get it loose, and once it starts going, you should be able to remove this. And this, although I don't expect any oil at this point, you will get a little bit of drip. As you can see, I got a little bit of drip. There's actually a plug type system in there that I'll show you in a minute. They have a tool that comes with the oil filter to drain the filter itself. But anyway, this is the outer plug of the oil filter. As you can see, we've been draining for about 5 minutes, and I've removed the upper cap off the engine, the fill cap, and I've removed the silver plug off of here. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and put the main drain plug back in, even though we got a little bit still coming out. Like I said, it's been going for 5 minutes, and in my opinion, leaving this little bit in there is not going to affect the oil, so I'm going to go ahead and plug it back up, because I only have one pan here, and I have to move it when I remove the filter. And if I have one pan, I'm going to have to do that so I don't make a mess on the driveway. Okay, I've gone ahead and put the plug back in. I'm going to move the pan out a little ways and go ahead and wipe off the cap, the plug I should say, the fill plug. Go ahead and wipe it off, and then I'm going to take my wrench and tighten it up. So tighten it up just so that it's snug, and give it a little push, not too tight. These do not have to be put tight. As long as it's a little bit snug, you'll be fine. That should do it. It's not going to leak. This particular filter comes with, as I mentioned before, the paper insert. This is the filter itself. It comes with 2 rubber rings, and it comes with this little tool here. This little tool has threads on this end down here, and the threading is the same size as the silver plug which we just took out. This tool is used to drain the oil that's actually in the fuel canister itself before you remove it. That'll just make less mess. You're not required to use this, but it's there if you want to, and it can make things a little less messy. But I'll show you how to use that. Okay, I just moved my pan back into position here. It's now directly underneath the fuel filter itself, which is right here, and we have this tool, as I said, and it should screw in here. And as you start screwing, as you can see, oil will start immediately coming out. There's like a spring type mechanism in there that keeps the drain plugged until you put pressure on it, and that's what that tool does. As you can see, it's draining into the pan, and this one takes some time. It'll start and it'll stop, but I've noticed that it takes a while for this to actually drain. You might give it another 10 minutes if you want. Just have to keep an eye on it. It just makes things a little cleaner. You're still going to get messy. Well, as you can see, there's a bunch of different types of tools, actually different sizes of tools here that I have to remove the oil filters, and this will remove the canister type and the cartridge type. The smaller one is the one we'll be using today. You just use a normal socket on the end. It's a little tricky because you can't push the socket all the way in this case, because if you do, it'll punch through that hole and stick out on this end, and then you can't put the thing up on the filter. So you just got to barely put it on and turn it. That's why we recommend you don't turn the filters too tight when you're putting them on. You hand tighten them as much as you can, and then give it maybe a slight eighth of or quarter of a turn just to snug it up. But I'll show you how to use this. Okay, as you can see, I've got the tool on the end of the cartridge here. I've got the socket stuck in there with an extension, and we're going to go counterclockwise. And I've already loosened it before I turned on the video here, but it's still snug. It'll stay snug almost the whole way off. I've noticed this one tends to be kind of tight here, but it loosens up a little bit as you get further down. And I've moved the oil pan out of the way, but when I'm about to get it by hand here, which is just about ready, I'm going to take this off and move the pan back in position and do this by hand. And this is probably the messiest part here. We'll see how well it drained. I try and keep it upright as much as I can. And it comes off, and out comes the mess. As you can see, there's the filter sliding out right there. It's a little bit stuck here. I'm going to have to use two hands to pull that out, but I'll show you the pieces after I get back. Okay, there's the oil filter, the old one. I just set it in the oil pan. It came out. Had to use two hands. Got a little stuck. Here's what it looks like under here now. That's where the canister goes. It just screws in. It's got the canister itself has outside threads, and it fits on the inside there. I'll show you that over here. Here's the canister itself. It still has the tool attached to it. I'm gonna have to take that off, and I tapped it on so it's on there a little bit snug. And there's the inside, the paper filter. This paper filter will slide right on top of that, and we're just going to clean things up, and then I'll show you more. Okay, with this particular oil filter, as I said, there's two seals that come with it, the filter kit. This one goes on the top. It's the smaller one. I'm just going to set this aside. That's the old one, and the other one goes on the side right here. It's probably hard to see on the video, but let's see, it's right on the edge. You can kind of see it on the edge. I'm going to go ahead and remove it, and I'll put the other one on. It'll be easier to see because it's green. Okay, there's the green seal that goes on the threads of the canister. It doesn't go all the way to the bottom. There's kind of a slot there most of the way down that it fits into. And then the canister itself, the cartridge, the filter cartridge, just slides right on top. And it doesn't matter which way you put it in, it'll go either way. And it just sits on top like that. Okay, we've got the new green seal on the outside of the canister. We've got the new filter sitting in there, and we're about to just screw it back up to the top here. We've left the cap off the bottom as well as the smaller ring for now, because the smaller ring will fall off as we're screwing this on. So we're just going to wait on that, but this just screws clockwise into here. As I said, it'll screw clockwise into here. This one actually has two little knobs you can grip, and I know this one tightens up pretty quickly here. So you're going to have to work with it and possibly get something to grip it with better as you put the cap back on, the remover cap, and put it back on and use a wrench to tighten this. You'll know when it snugs up. You'll be able to feel it. It's already getting tight, but it's not at the bottom of the threads yet. So, okay, I've used the tool, the wrench here to tighten this up. Like I said, not too tight, but tight enough that you feel it's not going to leak. You shouldn't overdo it, because then it's just going to make it that much harder to get off, and you could strip it. Now we have this tool, or the cap, I should say, and we got to put the rubber ring underneath here. This is the tricky part, because the rubber ring wants to fall off. So it's hard to do with one hand, but I'm going to try it here. Screw this on. You'll know if it kind of gets stuck, because the thing won't seat correctly. And I feel that rubber cap go in that slot, and I've hand tightened it. Now I'm just going to give it maybe like an eighth of a turn with the same wrench that we used before to remove it. And there we go. That's the end of this is the end of the dirty job. All the dirty, messy job's done. We just need to fill the car with oil. I've put the canister back on with the new filter. There's the drain plug is plugged in. We're ready to go. I like to wipe everything down with a towel, just so you don't get the smell, and you can also tell easier if it is leaking, if you have a problem. So make sure you wipe everything off the best you can underneath here, and I'll see you at the top. Alright, we're back up top here, and I'm using a funnel here to fill it. You don't have to use it if you're good with pouring, but to keep things clean, I use one. As I said, the reason I changed this oil myself is this synthetic 0W20 oil costs a lot, but you also get, according to Toyota, with this kind of oil change, you can go 10,000 miles between changes, unlike the old times where it was 3,000 every oil change. So it's more than 3 times as far, and like I said, I'm doing it for about 45 bucks, so that's not too bad. Anyway, you put your oil right in the top, right here, and like I said, I use the filter, or the funnel. It just makes things a little easier. In this particular case, it takes 5 quarts. Okay, I happen to know that this car takes 5 quarts of oil. You might want to just put in 4, and then, or maybe 4.5, and then check the level. What I know this one's 5, so I went ahead and put all 5 in. I'm going to close this up. And what I like to do with the car still jacked up, I'm going to go ahead and start the car and check underneath for any. You'll see right away if there's some problem with oil coming out. So I want to leave the car jacked up just so I can verify that I don't have any major problems going on under there. Okay, you may or may not have ever noticed this, but if you've ever changed your oil, when you first start the car after changing your oil, the oil light will stay on a little bit longer than normal, and that's because the filter has to fill up before the oil starts flowing through the system. That's damaging to the car, and sometimes they recommend, if you can, to fill the filter up with oil before you stick it on the car, if you can. In this case, it's a little harder because it's that canister. I could probably save a few seconds off the light staying on, but I'll show you what I mean. I'll start the car now. You can see the oil filter. It went off already, so that wasn't too bad. But I'm going to go back under the car just to look. As you can see, I still have a maintenance required light on. That indicated I did need oil change. I'll show you how to reset that also. That's why that light's on. I also need washer fluid in the car. Alright, with the engine running, it's just idling, and we still have the car jacked up. We're just going to take a look under here real quick and look for any problems with the plug. And up here, I don't see any problems. Well, we saw no leaks underneath. I've turned the car off. I've removed the jack stand. Everything's back. Got all the caps in. Last thing to do is pull out the oil stick. I wiped it off. We're going to go ahead and see what the new oil, what level it looks, and it looks good. It's right up to the top dot there on the stick. It looks clean. Stick it back in, and we're done. And that is how you change oil on a 2010 and possibly other model year numbers of a Toyota Camry. Last hints is just make sure you put in the plugs underneath the car fully before you fill up. I've actually witnessed somebody not do that and pour 5 quarts of oil straight through the engine onto the ground below. So that's an important thing, and always try and be safe. Use the jacks. Leave the hydraulic jack under there with most of the tension on it, but use jack stands when you can. In this case, you don't even have to climb under the car. You just have to reach under there, but still, you want to be safe. So hope this helped, and good luck. I almost forgot. One thing I was going to mention is how to turn off the check engine light after you change your oil. It'll reset. In this case, this car was set for 5,000 miles. The original owner's manual said 5,000 miles on an oil change when I bought the car, and it was set for that. And the light will go on every 5,000 miles and will need to be reset. But Toyota had after that sent a letter saying if you use the synthetic oil, 10,000 miles is applicable, and you don't have to change your oil every 5,000. So the car still is programmed for 5,000. So I actually have to do this once in between oil changes. The way you do it is you set your odometer trip thing to trip B, I believe. I'm going to give this a shot. I always forget. You have to hold the trip odometer button while you turn the car not fully on, but just on to the accessory mode. And when you do that, you'll see flashing zeros on the screen, and you keep holding that button until the flashing zeros go solid, and that'll reset the check engine light. So that's how this Toyota works. There's some different methods, but a lot of Toyotas are similar. So that's how you can do that, and good luck. Alright, I misspoke before. It wasn't trip odometer B, it was trip odometer A. You set it on trip odometer A, you turn the key to the accessories while holding the trip reset button, and you'll see flashing dashes on the screen, and when they disappear, that means you've reset the mileage counter for 5,000 miles. I also added washer fluid to this car, so let's go ahead and start it. And those two lights went out, and we're looking good. So I hope that helps again, and I wish you luck. And sometimes it's just not only convenient or economical to save changing your own oil, it can at times be more convenient. It's a mess, but I'm old school, and I like tinkering with cars as much as I can these days, and there's not much you can do on these cars. So the last great hope is to change your own oil. I'll talk to you later.